Welcome to the Scene Weekly podcast, where we harken back to our college debate days and pick two movies with the same theme, where up until this point, Steven had thought it was more of the fuck you movies. This week's episode is focused on for you movies, Steven, as the one I love tries to create Problemistas for Scene Weekly. Come join Jonathan and Steven for another week of desirably less plot chatter and hopefully more film banter. We are Scene Weekly, and welcome to our worlds.
Here we are. Why don't you explain what this For You film series is for our new listener, or the fuck you film series?
The fuck you film series is what originated from the one half of this podcast, and that would not be me. And he thought it was going to be fun to create bad movies for me to watch. But up until this point, that's what I thought it was. But now I actually enjoy one of his recommendations, your recommendations. But basically, we without a theme really, because generally speaking, across the board, we do have a theme, and this technically is a theme as we're choosing a movie for each other. And generally speaking, it's movies that we haven't seen before. Now, I would imagine we might branch off where we do for us movies or whatever it might be, where both of us haven't seen a movie together, and we collectively watch it and kind of analyze it. But up until this point, we've done for you movies, and so I pick a movie for you, and you pick a movie for me. Yeah,
it's a fun experiment. I like it because whether it's a film that I've had, in the back of my pocket for, years and years, and I want to share it with you, or something that I just recently viewed, and I was like, wow, I want Jonathan to see this because I know he doesn't watch too many new movies. I mean, I don't know that, but
I don't watch too many new movies is in fact correct, but you're actually refining your suggestions to an extent that they're much more enjoyable now.
It's good.
You're getting to understand the complexity or lack thereof of my brain. Yeah, as if the movies are pretty easily like ascertainable of what I like and dislike, but nonetheless, you're picking up on it finally. That's good.
I mean, that's the goal. That's the goal.
Yeah.
I have this like weird now when I like watch something new or something that's it's a little different. I'm like, I wonder what Jonathan would think of it. I wonder if he would like it. Maybe no, he wouldn't like this one. Oh, he would definitely like this one. This is kind of like one of those that I thought.
Yeah, this week was enjoyable. I would say to anyone staying with us and sticking with us, this is probably going to be the route that we take in the future. I myself didn't, as you know, didn't want to get cute too early in this podcast, and frankly, I don't care anymore. I just want to kind of watch what we want to watch, and so as you'll probably see in the coming weeks, such as like pre 1950s black and white movies next week. Items
You're
such as
tipping our hand, but yeah, that's what we're planning on.
More specific to what we're desirous of. You might as well get it out in front of it at the very beginning and at the end where people are.
That's true. That's true. No, yeah. I like this. I mean, there's tons of podcasts on the making of Jaws and Men in Black, I guess, and just the blockbusters and things. Yeah, you can listen to those, fine. But what about those like little rough edges, like little diamonds in the rough, or the things that just are a little bit more nuanced and have a little bit more, just more of an idea behind it.
Yeah, I like the difficult watches. I do actually really enjoy when there's a deconstruction of film. For example, the tweets we've been sharing with each other about how Spielberg shot particular ways in Munich, and I very much enjoy the backstory there. And I've seen a ton of old Martin filming in that capacity, but I really enjoy actually that side of things, and maybe because I had no idea really, and you are more in front of the camera to some extent, and you've picked up cameras from time to time and try to film things, whether good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't done that outside of like children. Or
you haven't constructed a story and tried to edit it down, and yeah.
I created a 48-second film of my wife to some music that actually is outstanding. And if there were a 40-second, 50-second, or less than 1 minute clip like film production that you could submit this to, or like it would win
Well, they do say less is
something.
more, so
Who says that?
I don't know,
The
people.
Oscars? Everyone would hate it still. But nonetheless, Problemista and the one I love. I yours was pretty much off the cuff. This is a for you movie in the back of your back pocket, as you say. Mine was not. I wanted to go the Duplass brothers route and path, and so this was like not a strikeout per se, but it was like, God damn it, Steven, have you seen, Safety Not Guaranteed? Yes, I love the movie. And then we went through a list of items for which this is probably third on the list. And it worked. I actually thoroughly enjoy this film for the dialogue and what things happen in my brain, and especially the first time I ever saw it. And it's one of those movies that, strangely enough, I actually still enjoyed it because like there's such a turn that,
Yeah.
of course, there's such a turn that like in those types of movies, when you have a big turn like Seven, Sixth Sense, whatever it might be, or any M. Night Shyamalan movie for that matter, like, can you rewatch them? Yeah, I rewatched The Village, even though people hate on The Village, like massively hate on it. I love The Village.
I'm in your boat.
Yeah, love.
Yeah, I love The Village, but that's
But for
another.
this, it's rewatchable. I don't know if it's rewatchable like every year, but um, I did want you to get a Duplass Brothers. I thought it would work well, but
And
I
it's
had no idea what you had chosen, so I didn't know what it was about. Was it Problemista? I don't know. I had no idea, no clue.
I
Hadn't
think
heard
these
about
I think these movies pair quite nicely actually.
it. They did, yeah,
For a double feature. But yeah, I am a fan of the Duplass brothers. Strangely enough, this was not even on my sonar radar, Google Maps, whatever. Like it totally missed me. And
yeah.
I
They have a lot.
think
To be
I
fair, they have like
I
an exuberant amount.
but I
Exuberant amount.
think it's because, well, one, I think this didn't really get a wide release. It was more just kind of released on streaming. But it's one of those things where you judge the book by the title, or judge the movie
For
by the
sure.
title. And this is like, if I saw The One I Love while I was scrolling through Netflix or something like that, like skip, don't want to, doesn't,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm totally judging it by the title. Um, and I'm
Which we do.
surprised. Yeah, we do. We do that. We're
Yeah, of
humans.
course.
But I'm glad that you recommended it. And we'll go into it in a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember the. I mean, Transparent probably. No, what's the brown chair one? Anyway, like there was a bunch of movies that I had seen from them and realized, and it might be from Transparent or just before that, so like 2015, I want to say that came out, 2014, something like that. And like I just wanted to know who made that show or the movie before it, and went down the rabbit hole of just watching pretty much everything I could get my hands onto. And this was eventually one of them, but it was later in the what I desired, and later in the sense of like again a third or fourth. But it's terrific. The first time I watched, it, I was like, oh shit! And it was less so about like, cinematography or editing or in that, but like it was just like the idea of it. And I love any movie that has good ideas and makes you think like, what would I do in this situation here? I don't know, which we can get into later, of course. But like, I have so many questions for you, like of just the situational haphazards that continue to present themselves.
Yeah,
To say the
there's a
least.
lot of situations in that film where I'm like, what would I do? What would you do? But we can get into that. I mean, it's um, what about
And then,
before we
and
go?
then
Yeah, Problemista. Did you know anything about this movie or Julio Torres, the writer director star?
nothing. I wouldn't say I know too much even now. I did look up um, some items about him and his career and his writing and his history and his life
Do
and
you ever
how it
watch SNL or some of those like SNL shorts?
not really, but I do know that he is a writer for the show.
Yeah, you should check out one that sticks out, or two that stick out that I'll share with you later. Is one where Ryan Gosling is discovering Papyrus, the font,
Yeah.
and it's fantastic.
Yeah. Is
That's
that the
one.
same
And
one when he was on his Beavis?
no, that's a different one. This was
Okay.
like years before when Avatar was coming out,
Okay, got it.
because they used the papyrus font. And then there's another one for little boys, Fisher Price wishing wells, and that it's another one that's just
I can
absolutely,
imagine.
yeah, exactly.
And by the way, my back hurts, so I'm probably going to be just shifting all types over here because I've been learning the X guard. Shout out Professor Sifu, the X guard in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and which means you're always on your back. So the one-legged X guard and just general X guard and De La Riven. It my back hurts, the upper back, the upper quadrant. My back never hurts, but if you're constantly hunching over and trying to do sit-ups, sometimes this happens. But I hope it doesn't.
Well, my legs have been rather sore the past few weeks, just on occasion, but that's
Why is that?
because, oh, getting back into the old yogging. I'm going to be competitive here in a couple of days, but I
Who are you
signed
going
up
to
for
be competing against? By the way,
anybody that's in the race. That's my age
got it.
group. That's male, and that maybe have like slightly graying hair. That's kind of how I will tell, like if they're in my age group, my age range. But
Do you think you're the fastest person on your street at 10K?
on my street,
Yeah, yeah.
that's tough to say because I live on a street with a lot of apartment complexes and things like that. So
Mm,
there's a
good chance you're not.
good chance. No, but I will say, the past 6 weeks that I've been, training and running, I run this trail by my house,
A
and
trail. You're on a
it's called
trail? That's a trail?
it's Stevens Creek. Yeah, it's bears my
Dude,
name, so
call
it's
that's
calling me.
amazing.
But I've only passed people. I've never been passed. So there's that.
Are you the type of person though that you pass people and then you stop? Or
No,
like or inversely if somebody's about to pass you, you just stop and sit there
and
or you
no,
stop.
I don't do that. In fact, if I pass somebody and it's kind of close to my turnaround area, I'll go like an extra half mile just to look like I didn't turn around right after I passed them, because I don't want to look like that guy. It's just like I'm passing you and I'm turning around.
I could not give a shit because I run what I need to run and that's it. So if it happens to be at the moment that I'm turning around, so be it. You got passed. Sorry. You can take it
Sorry.
to
Yeah.
your wife or your children and say, I'm angry. But anyway, Alejandro, great name. Should add.
It's a great name. It's a great
Big
short
fan.
name, Ale.
Big fan. Um, Afterwards, I looked it up and I had no idea that he had done everything, effectively done everything. And it was also about his life. But um, what should we go first?
They say
Now
you
that I
should write
realize.
what you know. So, right.
And you're doing Problemista and I'm doing the one I love, right?
No, we're not doing the little switcheroo here again. Or no,
No, but I really appreciated the movie. It's so funny doing these because you don't know what you're getting into since we're not looking things up in advance and the only thing that we have are the titles. And pretty much, I either buy it or find it and I bought this. Actually, I buy all of them if I can. And I just I had absolutely no idea, and so I try not, but the best that I can read the synopsis when you're actually like going to buy the movie. But you kind of have to look at things when you do that. So I saw something about toys, and I was like, oh, no, like what is this about, Steven?
you're like, oh
What have
God,
we
what?
done? But I really like the idea of it. I'm just going to go into Problemista though, but it's Alejandro, who's an aspiring toy designer who's struggling to bring his unusual ideas to life in New York City, and boy, are they unusual! As time on his work visa runs out, a job assisting an art world outcast is an understatement, by the way. Miss Tilda Swinson becomes his only hope to stay in the country and realize his dream. He has the American dream, moving from San Salvador, I think specifically, and had an interesting upbringing where his mom was trying to protect him and those around him, tried to buffer to some extent the outside world so that he could be happy, loved, and created various toys for him. Some of them, maybe they're physical, some of them are not and could be just an intellectual idea, but those eventually took shape either in his brain or physically, and um, eventually created ideas in his true life. Julio Torres, who's the director, um, and the origination of this movie. But it's a 2023 flick. I think it maybe was released elsewhere in 2000, like this year. 98 minutes comedy. It says it's
Surreal
comedy.
comedy. Yeah.
I I don't. I see it. Anyway, it doesn't matter what I think. Rotten Tomatoes got it at 86%, budget of 12 million, and box office of about 2, which big budget. I would say for I don't know if it's his first like proper movie. I think he's done a couple others, but like um the cast I would imagine is most of this, and then secondarily there was some, I don't know if it's CGI necessarily, but there's a lot of special effects throughout. Not, I shouldn't say lots. There was fairly significant. Also, the filming in New York City is going to be expensive to shut down blocks. Also, the filming on the tram, for example, which had to have been expensive as well. One of the best scene shots of the movie, but a lovely, interesting um, foray into Julio Torres. Had no idea who he was. Was he 37, 38? And really just rocked it for me. I mean, it's a weird film that has a lot of pleasantries throughout.
Yeah. It's definitely, you don't know what you're getting into when you watch it, and it's almost like it takes the form of a fairy tale,
Yeah,
um, especially
it is
with
a
the
fairy
voice.
tale.
Yeah, with the voice narration and the hero's journey and the all of the things that happen to you in life, whether seen or unforeseen, and how you have to deal with that and how you have to face these problems and overcome them and things like that. And all these things are happening in the film. But I love how he sets it up, just like even like the setup of, the beginning where he's at a job at a cryovac place, and all he has to do is just make sure that the things are running and people don't die, because what the people are doing is they have terminal illnesses and they're freezing their innards in hopes that there will be a cure for them in the future. Um, it's a big hope, but yeah,
It's a large hope. I mean, ultimately, I see this to go in your fairy tale. It's a modern day fairy tale because it's set now. It's a modern day fairy tale with a complete life, ultimately to some extent, of trying to escape boredom and being deported. And it's the simplicity. I mean, if you really break this movie down without an imaginative remark or like intonation, it's fairly boring, right? Like he's just going to work, but it's the interpretation that's always the most important part of everything in life, and it makes this movie amazingly fun, and I like that element of it where he's just going to work. He's got this always got the same like stoic face on him, the stoic voice,
he shuffles his
simple.
feet.
Boy, does he shuffle his feet. I was like, is are they going to mention? Are they going to discuss this like a little more at length? Like, did he ever like try to get assistance here? Or what is this about? Never had a proper answer there, but I liked how everything was plain Jane. For example, the RZA is just talking about eggs, and he's an artist in
It's my eggs.
movie drawing
Do you,
eggs,
yeah.
and
Did you
it's
like the
just
Wu Tang
so.
Clan growing up? Did you like RZA?
Yeah. I mean, he's great. I like the roles that he chooses are just. I mean, this is
Bonkers.
anyone who chose this role, including Julio, writing this is just they have to be. I think you. It's funny, like you have an idea, right? And this always happens, I would imagine, with artists. You have this idea, and you pitch it to people like closest to you, and either they're weird too, or they're like, "What is wrong with you?" And you're like, "I don't know, but let's just keep going." Like, yeah. Like this movie, eventually, it never had anything in the way to be like, "Yeah, just like everyone's just like, yeah, continue." That sounds right. You're gonna type in Craigslist and search in Craigslist. And that shit's gonna come to life.
It's going to be a genie coming out of the internet.
This dude just talking to you in a microphone that changes in any instant. But I have so many elements of this movie that, like, I don't honestly know where to start because, yes, it's a movie about I mean, it's a boy, but it's like boy, is it a of age, coming of I don't know what the story is. It's basically
It's a
he's just trying to do
finding yourself in a world. I feel like it's one of those like
worlds.
he's worlds. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's interesting to think about the immigration part of this because, like you said, immigration is very bureaucratic, and there's all these loopholes you have to jump through and things like that. And it's very boring, but the way that he frames it and visualizes it with the hourglass running out, and then just people in the immigration office just disappearing out of thin air because their time is up,
yeah.
and they have to they're basically done once the paperwork is not filed and finished, and you didn't pay all of those fees, you're out, and that's it. That's the time that he's up against. And I love the other visual motif, and he does a few of these, but like where he's in an office and he has to get into the door, but the key is on the other side of the door, and he has to climb up and down, and he's just trapped in this endless maze that he can't get out of. And that was a perfect kind of like visualization of what the immigration process can be like.
Which affects it becomes a toy later as well. The stairs,
The stairs, yeah.
which is fascinating. But I like the motif as like the visualization of pretty much everything that was done. I mean, it's weird. There were sometimes I'm like, what is happening? But I tend to enjoy myself in those what is happening moments. And just I forgot what I was immediately about to say, but just the cutaways that he had, like in the Craigslist cutaways and the stairs and trying to find the key cutaways. There were just so many of them where he like goes into his like imagination basically and trying to interpret the world, and the lack of boredom that clearly exists inside of that world is it's never ending. But of course, the stress is always going to be there in those hourglasses that are constant in his head, which make absolutely no sound once the sand is all gone and the person is gone as well. But I can't imagine, having a time like that, like just ticking away, and now you're exiting this country because you're forced to. It's got to suck. It's got to be terrible,
It's got to be terrible. And then
stressful.
he gets fired from his cryovac job, accidentally unplugging Riz's cryovac tomb. But nothing happened.
But
Nothing.
only 10
Nothing.
seconds and nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Did you think he was gonna make it? Because like the boss lady was like, we have to talk later. Like, oh, what are we gonna talk about? Like, just need to talk. When she was being reamed out, of course, and the talk eventually, of course, ends up with him being laid off. I didn't know where the movie was gonna go at that point of like, oh, is he gonna be able to get out of this? Is it gonna be one of those where like he can never mess up, like being there, for example? And clearly it was not immediately. Like he's laid off, and now you got your story. Everything is on the line, and then here comes old. I don't even
Tilda.
know what to define Tilda as, but she's insane. Um, an insane artist. Which, if you've ever been in this world, and it's not to say that I have, but I feel like if you have actually been in this world, that character makes a lot of sense because those exist. Those humans,
Oh,
they truly exist. Like
I've
I know of some that I could directly relate to her character, and I'm like that is very close to what I've seen resemble a human being in this world.
I feel like, well, I definitely feel like
Wild.
Julio Torres has within his ranks of the entertainment industry, working for SNL and things like that. He has definitely seen this archetype of a person,
Yeah.
somebody that's a little bit out of touch with reality.
A little? You think she's a little out of touch with reality?
Doesn't know technology too well. Um, Insists that the FileMaker Pro is the Cadillac of archival software.
Yeah.
I've met people like this that they don't the cloud. It's in the cloud. Um,
Yeah. I
they
like
don't they don't understand.
one of my favorite parts. I mean, I have a lot of favorite parts, but one of my favorite parts of the whole movie is, and we're skipping the entirety of the movie, is where she passes while signing off, of course, on him to stay in the country, hopefully forever, and in the midst of passing away, and him eventually passing away after old age, they get back together in what you think is heaven, and immediately, oh my god, is it you, Alejandro? File. She immediately like goes into how the software, the database was messed up. It wasn't
Database
syncing
not
correctly.
syncing.
And then he's just like old man. He's like, it's okay. Like, it's all right. Like, I got it. I got it to work, actually. He's like, you did? You got it to work? And I've seen that. I almost see that in a daily basis in my job now of humans that act like that, but in the art space, boy, do they exist. And it's I can't imagine because they kind of have to believe like that. They have to believe they have the next big thing. They have to be delusional, right? I think any big dreamer has to be slightly delusional. Now you can have a Steve Jobs and then executes well, but you have to in the art space, you have to be kind of crazy and out there. And to some extent, no, to a massive extent, she is just like any of us can create our own reality. Now, there's different ways to do that. Now, she is taking the path of using not a carrot, but a big stick to basically yammer on and just get people to bow to them, to bow to her. And it's one way to go about life. And I think Alejandro works well with her because he is the complete opposite. He's easygoing and he sees that, wow, like maybe this woman does have something to her. Results are happening. They may not be exactly as the results I would choose, but they are happening. So let's see what happens here and stick with
Or
her,
the
which I
yeah,
appreciate.
exactly. It's not the route that he would take or even probably think of.
Yeah.
Um, but it does, and she does open his mind to what can be done and to think outside of these restrictive zones of your life, to be like, no, like just because there's a barrier there doesn't mean you can it doesn't mean you can't hop over it. Like there are ways to get your results that you need. Um, and I thought that was
Which
really interesting.
which I that point is, I mean, it's one of the most important aspects of this entire movie is he, you know, could he have been more forthright in the way he presented himself throughout, whether unplugging the machine, whether it was like Hasbro display of the idea of his Cabbage Patch. I don't even know what's it called. What is
Yeah,
that?
let's
What's it?
back up real quick. What is he trying to
Sure.
do here in New York City? He moved to New
He's
York
trying to
City to.
design. He's trying to design toys and create toys, and he has a lot of ideas. I mean, the way he grew up in real life, Julio, as well as in the character here, Alejandro, is has a creative mindset, and he's trying to create toys for Hasbro, and he's submitted an application to do just that. And 11 months after submitting his application, there just so happens to be one exact toy to his specifications that was attached to his application. That comes to fruition later, in the sense of him finally actually getting the job that he always wanted. But with that said, that's the premise to the story. He's working at a cryovac place or the cryovac place where he accidentally unplugs a body or body parts or whatever
Who
it might
knows?
be. And he's let go, and he has a finite amount of time to get a sponsor. And Tilda is the sponsor, hopefully. But boy, is it a treacherous path to see how it's going to play out. But there was, I don't know why I wrote this down, and I laughed so hard. Like I still I don't know why I laugh at stuff like this, and it makes almost no sense. But I think it's the character she built and the script that was like so good, and I can't really explain it too well. But like pupusas, do you remember when like there she was talking about pupusas?
Oh,
Like
remind me
yeah,
again.
and those nuns they killed in the 80s.
Oh yeah, in El Salvador and pupusas.
What's pupusas? Oh, and I was like, I don't know why. It just I was laughing out loud, replayed it, and I was like, that is hysterical. Because that's what we always do. Like, why does that sound familiar? Oh yeah, like that. Oh, the one thing that brings you to a town, basically of a country or whatever it might be, like of what you remember. And my wife does this a lot with like very specific details of things, but doesn't remember anything else. And I'm like, how is this even possible? But like that one there, like, oh yeah, and the nuns they killed in the 80s. That's, it's not often that you want your town to be like that. in people's brains.
But that's what people remember. That's
I
what
thought
people will bring up.
I'm remembering it from a movie randomly, and she's talking randomly remembering it from real life. So it's like it is fairly significant that that's how we attach ourselves to these moments. It's weird.
One of the parts where I laughed out loud was you have this narrator over the film, and it kind of peeks in and out throughout. And there's this one scene where they got the one of the egg paintings, and uh, Elizabeth and the other intern had to go in a car the other way, and Julio had to go in the I guess either carry the art piece or get an
Yeah,
Uber. And they're
yeah.
like, an Uber would have cost 18% of Alejandro's net
Net
worth.
worth.
I'm like, I feel that, man. I feel that.
maybe
Like,
maybe the like top three funniest parts of like because I don't I'd have to watch it again, but I don't think she talked for a while. And then when that came in, you're like, that is there she is again. That is hysterical.
it's amazing.
I I thought of that as well, moving to New York City myself, and like I just paid. I went on a I went on a spending spree to call it that. And when I was in 2006, I traveled to Europe for the first time. Went into a massive amount of debt. Had for a month one of the best times of my life, still to this day. But I did have a lot of credit card debt that I just so stupidly incurred. Still don't even care actually. Looking back, would I have changed anything? Absolutely not, because boy, that those 26 days were wild. 14 countries, 26 days. Can't believe you weren't there. But nonetheless, I went to Korea, lived there for a year, and basically just paid down everything I had built up. Also, just wasted money when I was in Korea, but at the end, I paid everything off. And when I got to New York City, I had canceled all my credit cards, so I had no cash, I had no money, and so like I was putting Rocky to you, literally. I was flying back from Korea, and I had to ship off my old dog, Boston Terrier named Rocky, R.I.P. Rock, and he was delivered to you. And I had I don't know, I basically had no money to my name after renting a budget truck and having everything just for this move. And so for 3 months, I was like walking to job interviews. I couldn't cut my hair because I didn't have any money. And if I had ever ate anything, it was just, like cheap food, like ramen noodles. Didn't have a place to stay. I was staying with my girlfriend at the time. And I just thought, I remember those days of like cab. Like, first of all, I wouldn't even be taking a cab. I'd walk to interviews, couldn't take the subway, be like, I have to get there like an hour in advance in the summertime because I moved August 29th, 2007. And like, couldn't I be sweaty, right, for interviews. So I'd get there like way in advance. And hopefully they had like a intermediate area that I could just hang out and had AC. But those are stressful times, man. Like when you're saying like, yeah, I feel that, I felt that too. Like I still feel it, that feeling of um that this isn't even an option right now. Like I can't get into a cab. Like this isn't going to work out. Like literally, it cannot work out. And then you got to go to options 2 and 3, and hopefully those do. But it still gets stressful for me to think about, honestly. Like
Or
not
like,
having anything.
yeah, or like, going to an ATM, checking your balance, wiping a little smudge off, and saying you have a negative $407 balance. How is this possible? Um, uh,
God, I remember. This is like 14 years ago. I don't even remember at this point, but I remember like I wrote a check to somebody. Somebody cashed it in advance, and I was traveling. First of all, like wasting money again, traveling and calling you and be like, Steven, can you put like money in my Chase account because I have no money to even like travel around this country because my somebody just cashed a check like 3 weeks early. So like that was probably the most stressful time ever. I was like, I can't get out of this country probably. I think it was in Poland or something. But nonetheless, anyway, enough about me feeling stressed out about that. Back to the Craigslist. I want to rip apart in a good way, like what he has created here, like the visualization of Craigslist.
it's so brilliant.
It's so
It's
brilliant. Yeah, it's
because
genius.
that's what Craigslist is. And
Yes, if it were a monster, it is a monster, right?
yeah,
with multiple heads, literally, figuratively, like everything that he did in the visualization of Craigslist. Like, I actually just want to watch a movie entirely about that, the Craigslist monster, basically, and just see the little vignettes of Craigslist, of
And all
like
the jobs, the weird
interactions.
jobs that you got to do. Cleaning
Wait,
boy.
God, dude, when we got there, I was like, "Oh, is this movie going to turn south?" Like, it was just so happy-go-lucky, and then I actually afterwards. I mean, it's sad. Like, a man paid him to clean his windows and made him. I mean, I guess you don't technically know what happens, but like, made him undress. I don't know how far, but and got close to him, and it was still like of the weirdness level where you can kind of tolerate it without like
Getting too
step.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, getting too uncomfortable. But yeah, that was like the reality was hitting home. Like, he's quite willing to do almost anything.
Yeah.
And
For
be
I think it was like
truly
40 bucks.
seemingly unaffected by it too. And there's a book I have in front of me, Lindsay Goldworth. I used to work with her. Um, Bow Down actually is talks about stories such as this. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, like dominatrix in the financial world and what you can learn from them. But I haven't read it. Sorry, Lindsay. Yeah, just there's so many. I mean, we're 36 minutes in here, but like, there's so many like moments of this that I have questions, I guess, for you. But like, this is a tough question to answer. But like, if you were when do you remember when you were a kid and like what toys, and not to get into our top five, but like, what toy would you have wanted to have and that you didn't have, or what toy would you want if you were six that never even existed to this day? Do you think that you would like?
Right, that's a good question. Um, that's tough. Sometimes, I think if you, I don't want to say send me these questions beforehand because putting me on the spot, like
I know this
it's
this one. I
tough.
this one first of all, I was like, "There's no way anyone can answer this." It's like, dude, it's going to take you like 30 minutes, and then if that, like, you're not, it's going to take forever. That's when I
I
wrote this down.
remember,
I
I
was like,
remember
I don't
walking
think.
through, I remember walking through Toys R Us and things like that, and wanting all the toys. And but I mean, I was pretty lucky where, Christmas time would come and I would get the ones that I want, and it wasn't.
Yeah,
It was never like, oh, I mean, playing with sticks and a rock.
yeah.
Um, I had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I got the trampoline in the
uh,
backyard. I got
oh, you would
yeah.
you were one of the families of the trampoline. I would be hanging out there all the time. I loved
Yeah.
we didn't have a trampoline kid in our neighborhood. We were too on the low end of the everyone had a pool, strangely enough, but nobody had a trampoline. Um, it's interesting. Like, I remember, like, even in college, your family, for I came over for like Christmas or Thanksgiving, and they bought me like a space heater.
Yeah, yeah, Space Heater.
That's like the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. Like, can't believe somebody would buy me a space heater, and then gave me a TV, and I was like, this is like the best Christmas ever.
Well, the TV was a hand-me-down. Yeah, it wasn't new.
I handed it down to somebody else. So I actually have a point to this movie that I'm extremely disgruntled about, though,
Okay,
like very upset, and I have to talk about it with you.
shoot.
Do you like goat cheese salads?
Okay, so
Let's talk about this,
let's talk
because
about it.
why do they exist, and why do the humans exist that like goat cheese salad? Like, I'm all for, I just have a different taste. I like different things than you. Blah blah blah. Bullshit. 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 I think anyone who likes IPAs, you can go fuck yourself. And anyone who likes goat cheese salads with walnuts, and no nuts should be in salads, and no fruit should be in salads as well. Tomatoes, I understand, or avocados, those are okay.
What about dates?
Dates, we gotta cancel this now. But what are your thoughts on goat cheese salad? Because goat
Okay,
cheese in a, yeah. What are your thoughts?
so if you're a new listener, and this is your first time listening to the podcast, I am a culinary manager at a restaurant. I won't say which restaurant I'm at, but I do work with food, and I work with all different types of ingredients. I
Yeah,
do want to come back to this scene because I think this scene is was a pivotal moment where I was already hooked on this movie, but just the scene in a restaurant kind of got me, and how she talked to the waiter. But anyways, we'll go into that
Yeah.
in a second. Um, I work in a kitchen, and one of the menu items I serve is a salad, where one of the components is goat cheese, and
Okay.
it's one of the most popular menu items
Ugh.
on the menu in the restaurant. So it has dates, goat cheese, chicken, mixed greens, roasted carrots. There's no other fruit in there, and there's no nuts. We used to put almonds in there, but we got rid of that. But yeah, goat cheese, I love it.
Goat cheese is a cool thing to buy, and it's a cool thing when you see it on a piece of paper at a menu in a nice restaurant for the first time that you've ever been there. A goat cheese salad, after you eat it for a couple bites, you realize what you've actually done. You've
Now,
ruined your taste buds.
are you saying? See, there's only three pieces of goat cheese in the salad that I'm describing. Now, a salad that's primarily like a lot of goat cheese, I wouldn't go for. No,
Get rid of the goat cheese in salads.
altogether.
Yeah. I would say it's less about the goat cheese and everything that the accoutrements. Like walnuts should never be in salads. Any nuts should never be in salads, and dates should never be in salads. I think I'm more offended by that than the goat cheese, of course. But like the combination is outrageous. And then if you have like a raspberry vinaigrette, get the fuck out of here. This is nonsense. Like stick some greens in your mouth, put some olive oil on it, and just shut up.
Is balsamic okay? A little balsamic?
Balsamic is totally fine. Totally okay with balsamic, but you should not. I don't want to hang out with anyone that's eating a goat cheese salad with walnuts and strawberries and raspberry vinaigrette on top of that. It's just like, what are
What is
you
this, a
doing?
restaurant for squirrels?
But anyway, we can come back to this. I just have a few things that I really want to share that another thing that really angered me, which I should have like what really grinds my gears episode. I've probably talked about this before. Why is it people in homes don't take off their shoes? Like, why is it that people can walk around in the outside world and continue walking in the inside world of their own house, possibly with children, possibly with not having children? It doesn't even matter. And cooking and whatever you're doing, how is it possible this exists? I'm not even saying to go the second step of like having like slippers inside of the house. How is it possible that anyone has a house and doesn't respect it enough to just take off your goddamn shoes? It really it is infuriating to me.
Have, ha-
I love The Rock. I watch The Rock on like social media, and he probably just like wears his shoes like once in his house and like throws them out, signs them, and like gives them off to people for like like Christmas or whatever. Like he probably has very clean shoes, mind you. But like I don't understand it. Do you take your shoes off when you enter somebody's house or your own?
oh, my own, of course, and somebody else's house. It depends. I scan the scene of what is going on. Um,
I have a caveat. Last weekend, 2 weeks ago, actually, we went to a party. It was a 1 year old's birthday. They had an indoor and outdoor section for which basically they're like, we're going to be going in and out. We have a cleaner
keep
coming.
your shoes on.
Like it's irrelevant. And I had my shoes off to begin with, and I was like, I'm immediately going to put my shoes on because you dirty fucks are just going to make this place indoors an atrocity, and then therefore just defeating the purpose. I'm doing the inverse. So I get that, but outside of that, you dirty fucks, take your shoes off when you go into somebody's house. Have some respect, okay? Getting
What if you see
angry.
that they're wearing their shoes? You still? I'm going to take my shoes off.
That's the problem. Like, if how dirty are their shoes? First of all, that's never happened to me. I don't have friends that do this. On an occasion that you have a 1 year old birthday party or some type of event, I understand that. I don't have friends that do this in a normal occurrence. It doesn't, I don't, not a single friend. No matter their ethnicity, it doesn't even matter. They all have the same rule. But anyway, the overarching idea of this movie, I love. It's basically a combination of voices inside Alejandro's head coming to life in a literal head. And AI just basically is, like, have you seen those new AI videos of like people just do random things like, oh, I have a person walking, and it's like it looks like it's in a dream, like kind of like what dreams may come in the painting.
Yeah.
It's like that. Now this is like a real life movie that's just brought all of that to life, and I really appreciated that. to be honest with you, I can't wait to see another movie like this. If we can find, I would actually like to see like this is what I always used to do. Movies like Problemista.
And see what
You can,
pops up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
You were talking about the trolley scene to Roosevelt Island
yeah.
as being one of your favorites. Can you describe that?
So they have they have a show, an exhibition with 13 eggs that they're taking all 13 paintings from the RZA to show them, and he's since passed, of course, and um, they're missing one, and the one is as in they're in midair, they realize it's what is the blue, the egg and the
Blue
blue.
egg on yellow satin.
It's just take it so seriously. I love it so much, and like screaming doesn't appear to be getting anyone anywhere, and if you scream enough, though, it appears that sometimes you can get that tram to stop. And in a typical world, you actually can get subway, metro cars or cars to stop. You can pull it yourself if you're crazy enough, but you probably could get that tram to stop if you yell enough and are crazy enough. You're in an enclosed space, and so they actually go back, pick up the painting, and then eventually get over to Roosevelt Island where there's not enough space except for the 12 eggs. Um, and they're trying to be encouraged to leave one out. But nonetheless, that was the premise behind it. Again, I think that was the realization, the true realization of like, wow, she is just like handling her life as she so sees fit, and it works for her. Maybe I need a little of that, not as to that level, a little of that in my own life. And then of course, Alejandro goes back to Hasbro and demands a job because he threatens to come out with the information that his application included something that just came out in the toy section of every nearest aisle, um, and uses that against him, which I loved. Love that part.
That's the thing. And they said it earlier with the 13 eggs and the showing. It's not all or nothing. That's not what we're doing here. It's everything or everything. And you don't settle for anything
Yeah,
less. And that was what Alejandro had to do. Ale, he finally stood up for himself. And it's tough to stand up for yourself, especially in a world where you're coming from a different country. You have to select the drop down box, and there's no other. So he had to move to New York City. Um, just couldn't get a VPN, but he finally stood up for himself. And I love that confrontation because confrontation is hard, um, and you have to really stand behind what you mean and what you say, and he finally did that. And then he ended it with, excuse my tone from this conversation, but I do
yeah,
look forward to coming into work.
yeah. That was hysterical. Another one before like the 18% of the net worth, which around that same time I can't remember if it was before or after, but Greta Lee going into the daycare.
Yeah,
I
we get
laughed.
to see the past lives actress again.
I laughed. I laughed hysterically. Where Tilda's character was saying, looking at all the babies in the house, and was like, they're all from different fathers, clearly. And Alejandro's like, she runs a daycare.
It's just hilarious.
I was like, what are you talking about? Like, she runs a daycare, you crazy old lady.
I even
Can
thought the
we?
setup of the apology letter, where you kind of think like, oh, she wrote
Yeah.
this and she won't read it out loud, but then at the very end it cuts to Alejandro writing it, and she's like, "Can I see what you're saying?"
Nope.
And yeah, no, this is
And he's
all.
like,
This is just for the best.
he can't even look at her. Like he like turns his back. Like not only can you not see this, but I can't even look at you while I'm doing this. Um, by the way, would you if you needed money, would you clean windows pantless?
Is that where the line stops?
That's where it stops.
Oh, okay,
But
yeah.
that's where you think it stops. I mean, because like one thing leads to another, whatever it might be. But like, would you do that? $40?
Probably not. That's
Oh,
that's one of
really?
the that's one of the links I would skip, and I would maybe just pass out the flyers to women for their hair. And
That was so
it
funny.
says $200 an hour. I mean, clearly, with the right attitude.
I will say this. I'll leave you with one last point, of which something that I've just often thought about, and I communicate this as frequently as possible with pretty much everyone. But it's something I've been inundated with. I had a bit of an ex girlfriend, and people from time to time have this idea that that life is perfect, and I actually take the opposite end of that spectrum of like life is so imperfect. It's good to strive for perfection, but with that being said, trying to create a perfect world for somebody else, I think creates immediately one that is imperfect or implausible and undesirable, and one without challenge and or potential growth, and something that is just never going to live up to expectation, is never also going to live up to your happiness, is never going to be reflected very well. Um, so the mother trying to insulate a child, I think, is a good thing to a certain extent, but at times you have to be challenged and you have to let go, and you gotta. I'm speaking to myself right now, and we're speaking to myself in like 5 years again. This is what I try to tell myself all the time, and it's a hard line to walk. I mean, if you look at how far children have walked in the last 100 years, like for example, you go back and I think it was like 1920s England. It's like they're 6 miles basically, and just go, and with the people that could actually walk that far and
Yeah,
have the means to do so. And then like 30 years later, it's like that's dialed down to like 3 miles, and like now it's like 3 blocks. It's like, wow, like this
that's
is
crazy.
this is drastic change. And, you may not think you're a helicopter parent, but that is the idea. Like Steven Pinker in The Blank Slate, and most of his books actually talks about this, um, about violence actually not getting worse. It's actually much less than it used to be. It's just the means for which we're gathering that information and processing it, like Twitter, for example. So we're inundated with it. The world is much less violent, and the your child going missing is much less to happen, or much less odds to happen. But like we've become much more inclined to think that it's 100
The
x times
Yeah, the
can
fear
happen.
is heightened because we see it
You see it too
in
much.
videos.
Yeah, yeah,
There's an interesting kind of going back to challenging children as parents. There was a video that I watched that they do this in Japan, where they have this like sidewalk, and there's like these like rubber kind of barriers or something like that,
yeah,
and the parents walking on the other side, and they leave the kid behind, and the kid it has to figure out how to navigate that
yeah,
obstacle, and the parent doesn't help them even if the kid is crying or anything like
yeah,
that. Like they're like, you need to figure it out, because if you
yeah.
can't, then this is going to affect you down the line. And I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's that to a T is how I like to raise my only child. But I think if it were just me, I would certainly press things probably even much further, um, and challenge her deeply. I think that's why with two parents, it's good to have two differing views.
Yeah, the yin and yang.
Yeah, not take over each other. The yin and the yang, actually, I've learned recently about the quantum side to that, which I would like to talk about later. But anyway, the one I love. How were your
Yeah, let's get
how was
into
your
let's get
first experience with the one I love?
again, for you, film that I have not seen, heard of, or uh, did any research about, which I'm glad I didn't, because for about a good chunk of the middle part, I thought it was like going to turn into a horror film. But the one I love is a 2014 film directed by Charlie McDowell, his directorial debut, starring Elizabeth Moss and Mark Duplass. Um, I mean, that's the cast. You got a
Yeah,
little Ted
that's
Danson
it.
in there, but that's it.
No, that's it.
Um, it was made for around $100,000 from what I gathered. Box office 583,000. Like I said, more of a streaming release than a wide release. It didn't get a wide release at all. Um, but yeah, here's the kind of basic introduction to this film if you haven't seen it, and I suggest you do. A married couple tries to recreate that spark they had when they first started dating. We see them sneaking into a person's backyard swimming pool and jumping in, just waiting to be caught. This is an attempt to relive the moment they fell in love. But when no one is at the house to catch them, like in the last time, they realize something is missing in their marriage. some other things happen too to suggest that. But they go to a couples therapy where their therapist, none other than Ted Danson, suggests an idyllic weekend retreat to a secluded estate. The couple agrees to go, but once they arrive, they soon find out there are strange things afoot going on at the guest cottage. Herein lies the Twilight Zone mystery that unfolds. And does it unfold? Um,
It unfolds. Yeah.
it unfolds, and it caught me off guard because I didn't know I didn't know what the tone of this movie was going to be. It seemed like it could be a marriage story, romance rekindling, kind of feel good, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and then there was parts of it that definitely felt like this surreal, like horror invasions of the body snatchers kind of like movie. But it was a meld of like, it was kind of like a mind fuck of all of those things of like, where is this going?
Yeah.
What's going to happen next? And when that twist does come, when that turn does come, you're like, holy shit,
Yeah. Yeah. Because
what is going on?
there's I mean, we should just get right into it. And it actually happened a lot sooner than I remember. Actually, I thought the twist was at the end, but it's more like in the middle, or even like not even middle. So they go into, I don't know what to call it. They go into the
Cottage.
cottage, if you will, with the pool. And in that cottage, there's a guest house. And then the guest house, basically, when they enter, um, separately at first, they realize that there's basically the best version of
Their
their
spouse.
spouse. And whatever that best version is, I mean, that's what they really and truly are. And so at the initial outset of things, we should probably be just explaining this, I guess.
Yeah, I can discuss this. It's interesting because you say the best version of their spouse, and at first they don't realize it. It's kind of cool how it all unfolds because they're at the main house having their first night. They're kind of clicking. They're smoking a little bit of weed, um, and then um, Moss's character, um, she goes into the guest cottage and finds Ethan again, glasses off, but this time just they're just hanging out, really charming, having a great night together,
Yeah.
and she ends up, or they end up, having sex, and she's happy. And she goes back to the main house, walks right inside, and sees Ethan passed out on the couch.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Wait a minute.
How'd you get here?
You got here faster than me. Like what? Like did
And
you
he's
what?"
just waking up
He's just waking
and
up. He's like, "What are you
groggy.
talking about? Groggy." And he's like, "Stop playing games with me." Blah blah blah. They get in an argument over this because she doesn't understand what's going on. He doesn't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, and so he has to go sleep in the cottage, in the guest house. Um, he goes over there and then sees Sophie,
Best version of Sophie
the best
in
version
his
of Sophie.
mind.
And the best version is very interesting on this front because Ethan is charming, a little sarcastic, kind of does some digs, uh, plays a little bit with her, whereas Sophie is just very like, I'm happy about everything. I'm not going to argue about anything. I'm going to be just the perfect little wife for you, and I'm not going to challenge you at all. And
Yeah.
it's interesting to see what that best version is for each one. But he ends up falling asleep there. She kind of cuddles up next to him and falls asleep. They both right now don't know what's going on. Like they think that everything's still kind of normal, whatever.
Yeah.
And
They're
then
dealing with each other as they are in
as
real
they
life.
are, yeah. And then the next day, they basically have this conversation about what's going on, what they saw, what they experienced, this, that, and the other, and they realize there's something going on in this guest house. And this is where we learn a little bit about what's going on. And Sophie goes in there, sees Ethan, has a conversation with him, comes out. And then Ethan goes in there, sees the other Sophie, has a conversation with him, goes out. And they're like, this is weird. We got to
Yeah.
get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they
They start
immediately
packing their
drive.
bags,
They pack their bags. They drive off. They go
go to a
to a cafe and
restaurant.
kind of
Yeah.
discuss what's happening because they're like, I mean, is this is this real? Is this
So we
fake? Is
got to
this
pause now.
aliens?
I want to make this about you and me. So, like, what do you
Okay.
do in this situation? Like, all of my questions are basically, what do we do? What do we do in this situation? What do you do? Because I love, like, again, it's like the like Problemista said to me, I love movies. I love anything that gets into like ideas, and the idea of this actually happening is so fascinating to me because we often think about like, oh, the best version of like who our spouse would be currently, and maybe it's 5 years ago, maybe it's like 5 years from now, whoever it might be. Like, what do you do in this situation? And you could choose Sophie. What do you do as the man here? Like, you're more of a disgruntled, not you in particular.
Right.
Yeah, so you're more disgruntled than Sophie, but what do you do? And I'm saying
Yeah,
for you specifically, you, Steven.
me specifically.
Yeah, you're sitting at a restaurant, you're having a conversation with your spouse. The best version of her is over in that little guest house. What do you do?
That's a good. I mean, it's tough. To your point, this is a conundrum that I mean, I feel like I would want to investigate it, and I'm kind of like in that
Absolutely.
as same as Ethan's character, like not so much interested in the what and why, but the how, and that's his main goal. Whereas Sophie's goal is like to be like that's my perfect husband, and
Yeah.
that's what I want to go back to and experience because that's
Yeah.
what's missing in my life
Yeah.
ever
Yeah.
since he
Yeah.
cheated on me or whatever, whatever happened in the past that they alluded to. But yeah, I'd want to
There was no
investigate it.
illusion. He cheated. Yeah, he definitely cheated. It seemed like it was pretty clear. I, first of all, what a cock he is, like in the movie. Just, I've explained it enough. Like, we should be through this. I'm like, damn, dude, if I got cheated on in that position, like, I don't know. He immediately like did not have a connection with me, or I did not have a connection with him because of that single point of like, yeah, we should be over this by now. I've explained it to you a few months ago. Like, I
It's not.
cheated on you.
It's not
Like,
over
what?
until yeah.
What? Like, how is this that quick for you? Really? Like, I mean, maybe I do have some friends, less friends, but I have heard of these human beings who have, I would say, open relationships. Not a whole lot of them, but I don't see how it works. But if it works for them, like, so be it. But in that instance, I just immediately think of myself, and myself in that situation is like, dude, homie, you gotta stop talking this nonsense. And you made a mistake, but you gotta own up to it.
If you want to continue with your relationship, like
Fair, fair.
you have to be all. If you're going to be in, you have to be all in.
I
Um,
and I love the intro to this movie and just how quickly it sets up the tone of their angst towards more so the Sophie's angst.
it's the perfect setup of like them trying to recreate what they used to have, and it
And I
just falling so flat.
with the editing it really sets the feel, and I really think it's anything that the Duplass brothers touches, in my view, and this is why I've gone down the rabbit hole of eventually finding this and everything else that they've done pretty much is they always get me in the feels of like, even if it's things that I don't even necessarily understand, or like in situations that I can't put myself in, it always makes sense to me from a feeling and emotive standpoint, and I love that about them. They just, I don't know how they are in real life. Maybe they're horrible human beings, but boy, do they have a pulse of emotion that just runs in their fucking veins that I don't know of any brothers. I mean, I don't know in Hollywood. I don't know two other people like them. That just
Cohen
anything that
brothers.
no, sure, anything they touch is like I connect more with the Duplass brothers than I do with the Coen brothers. I think the Duplass brothers, I connect much more with the Duplass brothers from an emotional standpoint. The Coen brothers, like for Fargo, I just choose anything that they've done. Absolutely love it, but it's com- basically combining the worlds created by the Coen brothers. They would interact very interestingly together. If not, it would be impossible. Like, how is it like the Big Lebowski entering Fargo, for example? It would be very interesting to say the least. But like
Yeah.
the Duplass brothers are able to connect in this weird pulse of emotions that I don't know any other two creatures, and collectively and singularly are able to do what they do. And every single time I watch something that they do, Paddleton, everything, it's I love it from an emotional standpoint.
Yeah.
But anyway, The
It's
intro
interesting
is
too that the script for this film. There's only 50 pages of the script written, and they were directed more to kind of like improvise a lot of the scenes. Obviously, there was like guidelines and things like that for what they were needing to do with it, but I felt that was a good choice because it did feel like it was coming off very naturally, especially when you got the four of them together. Um, in that respect, you know what I mean?
they're great actors. Like I had never this role in particular, it made me feel like they're great actors. I think I should table this. I shouldn't say they're poor actors overwhelmingly, like compared to like a best actor role, basically. But like in this movie, they're great actors. Like they're really made for this type of role. Because I actually felt a lot of what they were trying to say, and just being emotional in the sense of like what a spouse would do in this particular situation. And it made me think like smoking separately. It's really coming back in movies. I've seen it in like TV shows and like the Three Body Problem, for example. And what are your thoughts on kissing in movies? Because I don't know what this is. Every time I see people kiss, no matter like gender or sex, like I don't know. Am I like terribly old? Just dislike kissing? What's wrong with me?
It's
Every time I see it, no matter who it is, I'm like, ah, gross.
cooties.
No, I'm serious. It's so weird. I think it's weird, like thinking about it, but I'm like, I'm not a fan.
Not a fan of seeing other
Yeah,
people. What if it's like, a buildup of a moment of two people that have had this tension, the sexual tension building up through the
never.
entire movie, and it's
No, so I can take a step back and be like, what you're saying in the construction of an event or a moment. I get that. I just never like it. It's like, yeah, gross.
it's funny
Like,
because there's been this kind of thing that's going around Twitter and the news about the new Twisters movie. I haven't seen it, but between the two main characters, Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar, um, they were supposed to. There was a scene where they kissed at the end, but
yeah,
lo and behold, Steven Spielberg came in, not a director, maybe a producer on this film,
yeah.
and they consulted with him and said, "Take the kissing out, just take it out." And
Interesting.
people are furious about it.
That's interesting. Wasn't he on the original movie? Didn't he like he was on his airplane and or maybe this is Twisters or Twister, the original. Didn't he have something to do with the original as well?
Yeah, he was an executive producer of that as well.
Yeah, I know that on the original movie he actually was called in because either shooting was shut down or the main two actors, I can't remember who they are, their names, were just having issues. Something was happening on set, and he didn't get off the tarmac, didn't get off his plane, went down his like steps, and was on like step 3 or 4 or something. It was just screaming at people, screamed for 15 minutes. Got back up, shooting commenced immediately thereafter. But he was like very angry, and I was like, interesting. I would like to know what actually happened there because there's not many episodes of like Spielberg losing it
Getting
and like
angry,
yeah,
being
like
that tyrant of a director. No, I don't imagine him like that. But
yeah, but maybe when he's producing, trying to get some money. But anyway, to go back to the Ploss brothers, I just like the feel of it. I like the shot over the hedges, for example, where he's waiting for Sophie to come out and her turn. It's been 15 minutes. He's very
yeah,
particular with the time,
they
and
make these
so
ground rules. I think you
yeah,
would be very particular too, wouldn't you? Like
extremely.
it's
But I would also be very particular if I were inside. Like this is 15 minutes. I'm going to go. I also would not be as particular as leaving a phone to record a conversation. Like you do you. We chose this. I am not breaking these rules. We've chosen that you get 15 minutes and that's it. I don't need to know. If I need to know what happened, I'll ask you. So he's kind of like he's a little bitch, to be honest.
I feel like there's two turns in this movie. One is a big turn or twist, and the second one is a little bit more mild, but I still felt kind of shocked by it.
Yeah,
Was when because the whole idea of the rules of play in this movie was one goes in the guest house, they see their doppelganger of a spouse, and once they leave, the other goes in and sees their doppelganger, and that's the fence of the supernatural,
yeah,
and that's what I thought. And then
yeah,
when
yeah,
I
yeah.
see both the doppelgangers back at the main house, ready to have a conversation with them, I was like,
What is happening?
Okay. What? Yeah. What? Now all the rules are broken, and I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
I didn't know what to do with that information, and I even the second time I was like, it's still a weird shock, and that's what I was telling you before. It's not a movie I could watch every year, but every time it's a little less of a shock. I've only seen it maybe 3 times now, but it's a weird thought process, and eventually, spoiler alert, Ted Danson's character, he created these. We never know how, but like through the use of a piano, who knows? But these humans were created, or aliens were created, either to rectify the situation and create an alternate universe, the best spouse, so that eventually you can mend and go a separate way with that
He-
individual, and in doing so, you're leaving, your other partner behind, um, or so you think.
Here's the thing. Um, I like that nothing has to be explained fully, and the
Yeah,
absurdness of what a movie can be, especially in this situation. Like, is it sci-fi? Is it aliens? Is it just this supernatural occurrence that's going on?
yeah,
It doesn't matter.
yeah,
What
yeah,
matters is the idea between
yeah, yeah.
what you have in this therapy, this couples therapy of a marriage story, and how, like, what if you had the perfect couple, or the perfect versions of your spouse, and you got to interact with that again. How would your interactions change with your actual spouse now, and what would you want and what would you desire? um,
Do you think it would be beneficial if you were to have the best version? Because, like, to me, I think I get to um, where where you think they're eventually going to get to begin with. They're both, leaving, and I like how it's still open ended. Like, you still don't really know exactly what happened, and maybe it fleshes out like 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, or an hour later. You never know. Like, it's pretty clear, but like you still don't know. There could be a variety of things, right? And so, because Sophie could have been pretending or whatever it might be, which I like. But do you think you would utilize this like in a way to repair past relationships, or do you think the past relationships just come to an end for a particular reason? But maybe if you would have taken the left path instead of the right, or the derivations between, it could have been helped with this type of situation. I'll speak for myself directly. For me, I would go in the place or in the guest house, and this was assuming you go in the house and that's the environment before they actually are human beings outside to collectively. You go in, better version, you go out and you say, there is a better version of you. I know there is. It clearly existed to begin with and always has. And I used to like that version. You've gotten a little less cool. Just go back to that. That's where that's where it would be helpful. But what would you do? Like, would you be like, I just want to be with this person forever? It's already here. You don't have to work for it. That's where I think creating this perfect world is always going to backfire.
yeah, it is. I think what happens in a relationship is you don't see where your shortcomings are to that person until it's too late, or you never see it. And
You don't ever
that
ask,
well, that's the thing. That's what, like, couples therapy is there to help with, I guess, is having these questions and these conversations
but you
and
don't ask in
whatnot.
real life. I ask all the time. What am I doing bad? What do you want different? Like, what
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, all the time.
of course. I mean, yes, when the relationship is either rocky or whatever.
Good, bad, or ugly, all day, every day. I'm just saying, like, even when things are great, like, what can I do better? Like, what can be better? How can I do things?
Yeah, and that's a healthy relationship. But a lot of people don't do that. And a lot of people don't put in that kind of work. And
It's
a
not
lot of people
work.
just say, accept me as who I am, and that's who I am. And
Ah, right. You need to. Yeah. Have you started reading How to Not Die Alone?
not yet. No.
That's in there. That's a good one. That's a good point, Stephen. You could write this book yourself. That's a good point that she mentions about that's the biggest, like, misconception, not misconception, but like misconception, disillusionment of love. People, I haven't found love because, like, people, I haven't found the right person, or like people haven't accepted me for who I am. Like, oh really? You fucking gotta work at this shit, man. Just like anything in life, you think it's just gonna oh, it's natural. Sleeping Beauty just gonna wake up? Like, just it doesn't exist. Everything takes work. Anyway, I agree with what you're saying. I'm sorry to steal this thunder,
It's
but you
I need
wouldn't
to.
use it as in a past relationship.
Oh, I definitely I would definitely use this as a tool. Uh, Even more so, I would I would not do the audio recording. I would try and like set my phone up to like get a video recording to see just
Ah,
how the
yeah,
guy
yeah, yeah,
interacts, what
yeah,
I can do better.
yeah. That's a good point.
Understanding. Got to take off the glasses sometimes. That's what she likes, and that's what I do have a problem with this movie is that she is very anti glasses.
Yeah, that
And
hurt, right? Like it
it
really
hurt.
hurt. It hurt. It hurt.
I wore contacts for 2 days afterwards.
I don't wear contacts, but I just had to deal with my and commiserate in my own issues of dealing with people not liking glasses. What's that
Looked up
about, man?
LASIK surgery.
Glass.
Um,
I my wife got LASIK surgery. Actually, she had these thick brimmed glasses for since I met 5 years after I met her. Maybe no, a little before then, but best thing she's ever done. But you don't get to wear glasses. I've asked you about LASIK surgery. And you said
well,
I
you
wouldn't
could be
wear glasses, but I was like, of course you can.
you could be a faker and just wear the fake glasses.
Is it fake? It's like wearing an earring. You don't need that.
Like a clip on.
It's just a look. No, like anything in life. You're wearing a hat. It's not like what's the difference? You got to
Well,
reframe it. Is really what I'm trying to say.
it's just a facial accessory, is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. How is
So I
this
could just
so hard that you've never even thought about this? First of all,
roll around in a wheelchair in Disney World if I want to,
all
because
right. Technically, you can, and that depends on the nature of the severity of how you feel on that particular day.
I feel
You
immobile.
might feel injured, and you might feel that you need to get to the front of the line, and to do so, maybe anyway, we pushed my mom around before her senility kicked in fully, but it's helpful, having a wheelchair. But anyway, I like how these creatures that were created to assist in some way, shape, or form, all ways, shapes, and forms, to get their marriage for whatever reason. They're choosing another person and the best version of that person. Who even are they to begin with at the very end? Who knows? I like how at the very end though their personalities still come out. They still have this like this knee jerk reaction to be impatient to eventually, as we all do in all relationships, you eventually can't hone your personality and it's going to come out whoever you are. You could fake it for maybe an extended period of time. I don't know what that time is. What do you think you could fake it, like 2 years, a year and a
That's
half?
long. That's a long con.
Not like fake it completely, but like you can kind of go from 90% to like 96, and just like hold that. But then like you're like, dude, this is too much work. I've been there. I maybe you have too.
Yeah, you're just
I've
revving the engine a little too hard for too long. You got to get it back into that like neutral space.
I just remember sucking everything up and being like, me, as you know, like getting into relationships where it's like, oh, that didn't work, so I'm going to do the complete opposite. And then that relationship lasting 3 years and being like a year and a half in, being like, I've just been demoralized basically I had no voice for a year and a half, and now I'm going to start speaking up. And that's where issues start arising. Like, well, that wasn't the person that we first got together
I
with.
couldn't
And I was like,
imagine you not having a voice in a
well,
relationship.
it would be this would actually be a very interesting setting for a movie. I mean, I know it very well, just being completely abused emotionally. But I, eventually did not stand for it. My personality eventually came out, and I was like, this bitch she got to be told, because boy, do I got some build up here. But anyway, I want to go to the mimosa scene, and I thought about this so much, and it made me laugh hysterically. And I have another quote. I have two things. Sorry to take over this, but I am the one who subscribed or given it to you. But the mimosa scene is like, I've got to say, it's bad enough that I'm losing my wife to a mirror image of me who is 20% cooler, and now I have to sit to a mirror image of who I'm losing. So pardon me if I don't want a fucking mimosa. And I was like, that's to a T exactly what's happening, but like that's gotta really hurt. Like you thought it hurt before, but he should now at least understand what his actions, at least in a small amount, meant to her in terms of cheating and how she felt to now how he feels. And now it's even worse, of course, because it's
It's him,
the better version of him that he's
version
like,
of him. Yeah. And this
like
is the
how
only,
bad can you hate yourself, right? You know?
yeah. And I think this is the only movie, how well it was constructed, where you could have a married couple sleeping with each other, having sex, and it feel like cheating.
Yeah. It's a weird concept, man.
Well, because Ethan sneaks in to the
Yeah.
guest house the moment that Sophie goes in and tries to act cool and suave, and she's ready to get down, and he's ready. But it's again, I guess the reason why she gets mad about finding this out is because he was deceptive again, and the whole reason of
Again,
this
he
trip
cheated
is not
again.
to be deceptive.
Yeah.
And it's not the act of it; it's the thought and the motive behind it, to you know
That one
lie to her.
single moment, that's it. I'm out. Like I just kill Ethan. He's dead. Like literally, figuratively, all of the reasons. Like we are here because you fucked up. We're trying to get over things, and then now you do what I would consider even way worse on a collective level. Like he's done something way worse. Like they laid the groundwork for that moment, and he decides, my needs are way more important. I'm going to get more out of this. I don't know. I didn't like that idea. People probably are okay with it, but I didn't. Anyway, just wanted to say, the soundtrack with him walking by the pool when things are like crumbling in that moment that you're talking about here, it made me think of like the Ninth Gate. It's simultaneously hilarious and simultaneously like destructive. The Ninth Gate with Johnny Depp, and I love that moment. And yeah, I don't know anyway. Ultimately, there's so many questions I had for you and for myself, but ultimately, I do you think it would be cool to hang out with you? Like, not to talk about the relationship anymore, but like, do you think it, because like he gets to kind of hang out with the coolest version of himself. Like, do you think it'd be cool to hang out with the coolest version of yourself?
No, I'd fucking hate it.
I think
I
I
wouldn't like
sway
it.
I sway on this point a lot. Like, clearly you would have the same similarities, but it'd be like too close to home. Like, who the who the who the f is this guy? You know, like there's no way that you like this many things. It'd be weird, very strange. You might
Like,
turn gay,
did
honestly.
did you ever think about, like, would it be cool if you had a identical twin brother growing up?
No, I never thought that because it's like one non-identical twin brother was enough for me to realize I didn't want another brother. Why do I have to do this to myself again? But no, I didn't. Um, yeah, I don't think I've ever even had that thought. Yeah, just wanted to get out from under my
So I
father,
don't think you would
basically.
want to hang out with a slightly
Myself?
cooler version of you. What do you
No.
think you would have? Do you think you would have like a nose ring, like a little hoop right here? I think that's what I
Do you think I
imagine.
would be cooler with a nose ring?
Yeah, yeah, just
You
like
think so?
not a
Yeah, I don't.
septum, but like the nostril.
Yeah, not definitely not the septum. No, I have pierced my left ear before. I stuck a needle through my ear, personally, with my
How old were
fingers.
you?
Sixth grade, and then I didn't, I didn't get it all the way to be able to stick the stud through. The needle clearly was not thick enough, which I realized. And then I went to get it pierced, and then I got it pierced, and I was like, this looks stupid. And then I was like, I just took it out in the car. I was like, this is the dumbest thing. So I had a pierced ear for hour and a half, something like that. It was a big thing in sixth grade in Florida. Probably still a big thing now, but I didn't like it so much. I have one other thing to share about this movie in a quote.
Sure.
Sophie, the fake Sophie, was talking to the real Sophie in the kitchen when they were sharing wine back and forth.
Oh yes.
It says, "Are you more concerned with the experiences that me and your Ethan shared, or are you more concerned with what I know about the experiences that you and my Ethan shared?" And I was like, "Ooh, the guard's coming down." But that is my favorite quote of the whole movie, and it's like very fascinating to think about. If you really, truly, actually get to the essence of it, it's like, what actually are you more concerned with? Because when it comes down to it, you probably are extremely jealous that you're gonna be losing somebody, even if you're gaining that same somebody, if that makes sense. It's a tough call, but it's interesting to say the least. So
And right around that scene where they were discussing that, because they did some compliments earlier, and it's just like it kind of peek into like how women interact with each other. But she's like, we can stop talking about like how you like my hair clip and how I like your shirt. Like, we don't need to do that. Let's just get to the point.
I love that because that's like how I am I like to have those conversations. You're like, look, we don't have to play this game. It's just like we're playing a game, and I understand it, but like it's okay. Like we just let our guard down and just talk like humans. Like why do we have to do this? I love those conversations. I shouldn't say I love the conversations. It's not like I often have to have them. Less so now because I've removed those humans from my life. But nonetheless, probably um, this is the most fun week I've had. This is my number one for sure. And
Fantastic.
I think it's most of the movies I enjoy. You see on my walls like a Harold and Maude, like a Stalker, Amores Perros, like the Holy Mountain, Memento, Amelie, Tamam, all these like they make you think, and I like to think a lot. Whether it's in my own head or via a movie, whatever it is, like I like to think, and the characters that think as well that make me think then ultimately are the movies that I tend to enjoy the most. So we're probably hopefully going to get away from any blockbusters, and I like blockbusters. We need them for every 7 to 8 movies to break things up. You need popcorn in your life, people, even though I fucking haven't had a bag in forever.
Yeah, we'll celebrate in a month or so where we
Oh,
can just do like the biggest blockbuster where you can just eat popcorn and M and M's and
can
dark
we
chocolate.
can we just pretend like should we do like a watch along and just do it live? I'm gonna eat like a fat fuck. But with that being said, I really truly enjoyed these movies. Neither did well in the box office, but both have extremely important tones to them. And I think Problemista, Jesus Christ, I can't believe there's too many people and creatures and things to keep track of in SNL. And my focus is pretty much running in a child rearing at this point, I guess, to some extent. So a lot of things get overlooked. But I love this week, and I hope we just do more of this. To be fair, and I think we should probably fine tune our choices in the future so we
Well,
don't get
here's the
Infernal
thing. I feel
Affairs
like,
versus Departed.
yeah, I feel like, I've known you for a long time, but I feel like I've gotten to know your more of your personal taste over 53 movies, 51 movies that we've done so far, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and there shan't be any more in the loop shenanigans.
Well, in the loop, you just didn't know you hadn't seen it,
That's what you even asked me this week. You're like, "Have you seen Problemista?" And
which
I
is
is it
the
like,
which is this kind of like cheating, like the lie about like what Ethan did is like that's the issue I had more of a problem with. It wasn't the fact that you were like providing me with a movie that was bad, which is that's bad too. But like I'm gonna have duds, you're gonna have duds. I don't care about that. It's and we can make fun of each other for that. But it was just the fact that you didn't see it. I'm like, what is for you? Let's call that a for us movie then. But anyway, I just loved it, and I love the ending to the one I love, where you don't know who's with who anymore, and the fake Sophie was trying to lie to get out of it. Maybe it was a real Sophie, who knows? And ultimately, it looks like they've mixed and they've mashed, and they are with hopefully the happiest version of their spouse.
or
Who
they're
knows?
they're back together and they actually can now move forward after that whole ordeal.
Maybe she just likes to make bacon and eggs. Yeah, maybe that's the
Or
case.
Yeah, maybe she's meeting him halfway. I don't know, but I did like the elusiveness of the ending, and that it was kind of left open ended. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a fun week for sure.
And ultimately, what do I have for my rating? I guess the problem is I'm going to go first. Julio Torres just crushed. I mean, outstanding performance. The score it matches again the emotions of what's
It was
happening.
like this like choir kind of chanting, like ha ha
Yeah,
ha ha ha,
throughout,
almost
but
like a Christmas
fantastic.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and editing was ideal just throughout of the transitions between someone's head or his head and not, or actually other people's heads. Just the weirdness of it, I loved. Going back to that field in his childhood, but ultimately, I liked most of. Wasn't like a. I wouldn't say there's a downtick, but I gave it an 88.9 overall. Almost to that 90 level, which I think is like a rarity, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where I'm now really trying to hone in my my ratings and not give, like, still appreciate movies for what they are and the complete package, but like seeing these like little intricacies of like where we have to rate them and at what scale. I feel like even our lowest rated movie is a little too high to be fair.
Yeah,
Um, but that's us just trying to figure out where these kind of ratings lie,
you got to
because
start
now
somewhere.
you got to start somewhere. But I love this movie too. This was something that right when I immediately saw it, I thought it was my type of humor and my type of story. I'm all about Julio Torres, and I want to kind of see a lot of other things he's made. I know he has a comedy special.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know he's done a couple of TV shows, Los Spookies, and something else. But I definitely like his kind of witty, surreal, deadpan kind of humor. Um, but yeah, this was kind of right up with you. I put it at 86.95.
yeah. It leaves us at a 87,925 overall. And then the one I love, you can do.
The one I love, again, this was a movie that surprised me. Had a couple of turns in there. Great performances by both the top two actors. Like, if I had to choose, like which one I think was better, I think Elizabeth Moss is just a tick above. Just the way that she had to feel so like vulnerable, but also like she wanted the relationship to work out, whereas he was
Yeah,
just kind of like, I'm here, I'm trying. At least I'm
yeah, yeah,
trying.
yeah.
Um, the score, I couldn't. I would need to watch it again. This is one of those movies that the score kind of washed over me, where I didn't even notice it. But I think that's a good thing, because it didn't like stick out too much. But yeah, this was a great discovery for me. 84.25.
So I got an 86.2. The score actually was the highest of any of the categories that I gave it because I just felt like, especially with the scene where everything is crumbling, it just was so. It matched the tone of the movie. The editing, I was just like, I don't even, I don't. It was just there was no editing that was really needed. I could shoot this movie, to be honest with you, without like doing much thought. So that didn't get in the directing. There were some good choices, but like nothing significant. But I would say the ratings themselves are contingent upon the actual categories we're prescribing it with the percentages they're also prescribing it. So it's not that these are going to be matching up or comparative to each other, ours, because it's our own interpretation as well as the Rotten Tomatoes score. So it's just whatever it is. Um, but I think
I think we need to create a category that just says like vibes. Like, how did you feel at the end of this movie? Like, like
the
did
vibe
it?
is that's like score and audio that encapsulates it for me. Really, that's I always say it like this is the emotion that matches the feeling of the movie itself. But I don't know, yeah, vibes. That'd be we could do that. And then lastly, yeah, so 88.9, 86.2, and then 87.925 and 85.225. But they're not neither are 90 movies. But I was more enthused at the collection of these two movies than others. Although, like The Departed, for what it's worth, got a higher score. what I think is an actually better movie, I like Problemista and the one I love more.
And that's why I think
If
we
that
need
makes
to.
sense.
I think that's why we need to. And we can talk about this through whatever messages later. But like, it'd be interesting to have a weighted category that gives us a little bit more of our feeling and bias and just emotional, uh, pick. The gut punch that this movie left us with.
Yeah.
I think would be kind of cool.
Well, all
So
right.
that's where,
Until next week.
yeah.
And what do we have next week? We're going again. We're going to the cuteness of what is this podcast. We are doing pre 1950s black and white films, as we've said before. And you are doing what movie again?
So I titled this, and you gave me I think a like on it, but Golden Age Part One.
Yeah.
So these are films that take place between 1927, the invention of sound in movies, to around 1960, and we have this kind of like time frame to kind of pick out of. And I think that's good because I'd like to do a silent films era kind of
Yeah.
stint too. So this is a good area to play in. But I'm choosing a 1939 film called Only Angels Have Wings. And it's a Howard Hawks film that is near and dear to my heart.
Cary Grant, just one of my favorites. Like just one of my favorites. Fave.
Have you seen this movie?
I have. Yeah, it's been a very long time since I've like, for whatever it's worth. If I haven't seen like the older movies a lot, I would consider this an older movie. I don't really remember it too well. Like I've and even one Maltese Falcon, for example, I've seen like 5 times, and I don't remember that too well. I don't remember it too much, honestly. I don't know why that is. But anyway, the Bicycle Thieves or the Thief, I don't know because I can't translate. Look at the poster on my wall right now, and that's why I didn't read it off earlier. But one of my, I have to look at my list, but I think it's a top 10 movie for me. So this is near and dear to my heart.
It's a big one.
Myra told me about this movie, and this was like late in life. I didn't see this until probably 2000. I want to say like 7 or 8, something like that. Maybe 2009 even. And I was like, wow, how did this? You always have those movies where like, I didn't watch this for whatever reason, and then you watch it like, I can't believe
I've had a lot of those in the past few years. Yeah.
Taste of Cherry was another one. I was just like, whatever. And then I watched like, wow. But I'm very, very excited about next week. Like, I'm more excited now about this podcast than probably ever before.
Oh, that's good. Let's keep bringing that energy because I think this is a good route to take. Like, we get to talk about films that I think we have a little bit more passion behind.
Yeah, I mean, you're very passionate about Independence Day and those alien blockbusters, but now we get to talk about things that have.
You got to be passionate about something. No, I'm excited. If you guys made it this far, thank you.
No.
We are going to continue to do this podcast, even if you're not listening. We will be here. Follow us at Scene Weekly. That's where we're at.
SCENEWEEKLY. Scene Weekly.